Okay, today's video I wanted to talk about Jack Reacher and kind of analyzing some of the fight scenes that have gone on in that show. I've been watching I'm trying to think, it's not a remake, but I guess just a TV version with not Tom Cruise, basically, who's in it. So it's with the other guy, whatever his name is. The bigger guy, the ice cream cone guy, basically looking one, who's kind of built basically like this. Let's see. There we go. Yep, that's him. So, anatomy of a fight with Jack Reacher. Basically, I just want to talk about how they organize and set up the fights because it's pretty not unique, but it's pretty, there's formula to it. And I kind of wanted to talk about it because formulas are not bad, especially when they work, basically. So what we're going to be doing here is going through it. And what I've gotten the steps written out for it. So kind of the basic, I'm going to give the outline for this formula for the fight. So we'll call this our fight formula. And what we've got here is, let's see, number one, this is what we're going to call the primer. This is what happens essentially before the fight. This is what leads up to the fight, basically. And the ultimate goal of the primer is to ask or answer the question, let's see, why does this fight matter? And this is the ultimate question, because if the audience asks this, then they want to know what happens at the end. Basically, they're invested, and they can get invested into the characters, they get invested in what happens, and they're interested in seeing what happens from here. So you want them to get them to this point. Once they get here, then the rest of it can follow. So why does the fight matter? So usually there's different ways that you can kind of measure this. This is as far as the outcome of the fight, or the stakes, basically, if you want to call it. So in Jack Reacher, if you have, or just in general, any of them, if you have someone, a bully who's, bullying the innocent, and then the main character steps in. What happens? What is at stake is if the main character loses, then the bully will continue bullying, basically. So that's bad. We don't want that. So it does a number of things that are really, really, really important and key for making this work, basically, to where we initially care what happens to the main character. We care what happens in the story, and we want to see the right outcome. We want to see the right outcome, and that's really good. So this is the primer. So some good examples of this is in Jack Reacher. The one we've got, let's see, Jack Reacher. This is basically the in the prison, basically. So he goes to prison, and he's put in prison with the lifers. So these are the guys who are super dangerous. Super dango. And basically what we've got here is they are in a little bitty cell, and Jack is in here. He's got his bunk bed, and Jack is right here. He's kind of laying down. There we go. There's him. He's laying down. This is the cell. This is their door. Swings open. It actually slides open, of course it does, because it's a prison. It doesn't do that. And then it goes through here like this. And then actually the hallway is much, much thinner. So we'll just put a wall right here, basically, and call this, no man's land. And then I'll put another one right here, so it makes it look like the whole thing was a bit more intentional, basically. So what we've got is we've got the nerd guy. Nerd guy right here. And then income, and now nerd guy is wrapped up in a whole bunch of plots and nefarious things, but you don't get the idea that he's a bad person. He's just a nerd who either made some stupid decisions, some greedy or short-sighted decisions, but either way, he doesn't deserve to get raped, basically, because that's what the threat of is in the scene. And what we have is we have guy 1, guy 2, and guy 3. And they show up in here. And what happens is basically they start bullying the guy. So they steal his glasses, they humiliate him, and basically they're planning on like raping the guy or some variation of it, basically. And then what Jack does is he jumps down in between it, so then ice cream cone move out, and he moves in here, stands in between the guy, and basically this is where we're at right now. This is the primer. All what I described to you there is the whole scene about, you know, what's going on. So we instantly know, okay, if Jack loses, they're probably both going to get, you know, what's the outcome for these guys. Basically, they are going to get killed. They're going to get raped, maybe, beat up. You know, it's a whole lot of it's bad. It's bad news bears basically from here. And so that's what you want to avoid. The good part is that you want to beat up the bullies, basically. You want to get some sort of vengeance, some sort of punishment, some sort of retribution for these guys, that they would come in and threaten you and do all this like that. So this is the primer. Instantly, as the audience, we understand why this fight matters. That's kind of step 1. Step 2. Step 2 for the fight. Let's go over here. We're going to call it, I broke the fight into 2 sections. So for the fight, for this one is also, we're going to call it the fight. And these are, I mean, all these rules or points are nebulous. Like any of them can be ignored, changed, anything like that. Ultimately, the only thing that matters is whatever you change it to, it needs to be good. That's literally the only thing that matters for it. So before the fight, usually with the fight, what we're doing is we start off at, our hero starts off at a disadvantage. And they're either weak or at a disadvantage, kind of this. If we're talking Jack Reacher, usually it's at a disadvantage. So what this does is it does a few things. One, it makes it so the stakes are high, or not stakes are high, it's a close call, basically. You know, you don't know who's gonna win. Who will win? You don't immediately know. You're pretty sure with Jack Reacher, and that's kind of the interesting things about these, is that he's a very strong character, and physically he's very strong, so we kind of have the idea that he's got his life together more or less for it. And so what he's going to do is he can hold his own, basically. But what you want to do is you want to make sure, and you want the audience to have this feeling that the main character is going to what's called earn the fight, basically. And that is where it can't be too easy, and there's a few things. Again, these terms are nebulous, but you might ask, Jack Reacher's, 7 foot tall, he's absolutely huge and incredibly strong. What's his disadvantage or the weakness in this fight? And this one is that he's outnumbered. There's like 4 guys, so basically in this one it's 1v4, because we're not really counting the nerd at all. And Jack is the new guy, basically, and evidently the guys that are coming up and getting ready to attack them are some sort of big shots, or at least they have some sway in the prison, more or less. And so this is kind of what sets this kind of disadvantage. But it is very much 4 for 1, which, I mean, Jack is strong, but at the same time, 4 for 1 is pretty. It's not exactly great odds, basically. So we've kind of set this fight up to where Jack can, and I do use this kind of this image for arcs and story arcs and stuff like that. And I think more or less it follows the same thing with fights, basically. So let's see, weak, and then there we go. All right, so this is 2.1, weak disadvantage, so we want to feel like we've earned the fight. So then what we've got down here is 2.2. This is the second part to it, and this is, of course, the advantage, or strong. And so what you want is you want to start the characters off here in the weak position. In the weak position, it could be a number of things. There's a great video called I don't actually remember the name of it, but it's by Every Frame a Painting, basically. This brilliant, brilliant channel. And what they do is they talk about let me see, they talk about Jackie Chan, basically. Jackie Chan and his fights. And basically, he always starts from behind, basically. He's always at a disadvantage. And what he does, and what it is that makes it fun in the fight, is that he fights and then gets equal footing, and then fights and then gets the advantage, and then fights and gets stronger than the opponent. And that's this arc, basically. And this, at the end of each fight, we feel that Jackie has really earned the fight, as opposed to, one punch. You can't do, there's that Indiana Jones scene where he just shoots the guy in the middle of the desert with a scimitar sword, and that's funny, you can do that once, but you can't do the rest of the movie like that. There's a reason why it only really kind of works once. It either only works once in a movie, or really only once per decade of movies, more or less, for it. So it doesn't always, you can't repeatedly do that. But basically, it's this idea you always want to start from behind, so that there is something as far as this is the progress. You want to progress through the fight and basically get the idea that the main character is working. This also works for drawn out fights. So one interesting thing that I noticed when kind of thinking through this is in Naruto, what we've got in the Naruto versus Zabuza arc is basically they fight, and then there's a break, and then they fight, and there's a break, and then I think they fight like 3 times or something. They fight several times with Zabuza and everything, and what you have is basically Naruto starts off unable to do anything, and then he's getting stronger, and then he gets stronger, and then he gets stronger, and then he gets stronger, until he's able to hold his own in some way against them. And it's really fun because we get to see the progress. We get to feel that Naruto is earning his keep. He earned the victory. Nobody handed it to him. He earned it. And that's the reason why what makes Naruto really great is all these fight scenes that they do are just, they're really, 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 really well done, in that they give you this semblance and sequence of progress. Naruto's earning the fight. He starts off weak, he's moving towards strong or disadvantage. And again, these can play out different ways. So in Jack Reacher, he starts off basically, he's built like a tank, basically. But what you can do with this is he can start off with a disadvantage, and this evens the fight. Same with Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan is a brilliant martial artist, and he can actually is able to fight his way into the top and fight his way into the advantage, and that's what makes the fights interesting, basically. Because it would be different if it was 4v1 and the 4 were heroes. So it was 4 heroes versus 1 villain, and they just beat him up. And it's just like, great, I feel good about myself. It's like, no, you want to make the audience feel good, which means you have to feel like you earn the fight. And then so all of this leads towards, basically, so what we have here, kind of continuing our story here, basically, is Jack beats up the one guy and knocks him out, and then tells the others to BTFO, and then the fight ends, and then of course we enter the victory phase. And and this doesn't have to be necessarily be a victory. This could be the loss. If it's more tragic or more heartfelt or something like that, it doesn't have to be the victory one. But so you can almost think of it more as the outcome phase. I also realized I spelled that wrong, so we're just going to cross this one out, and we're going to put, there we go, the outcome. So maybe you lose, maybe he doesn't win. For Jack, that ends up winning. And basically what you want is this paints, how good of a victor is. The hero must be a good victor. This is kind of the rule, at least for heroes. If you want your characters to be liked, if you want the audience to like the story, which again, you can do things that break these rules, but you have to find another way to make it work. This is a formula. It doesn't work for everything. However, it works a lot of the time. And the reason why is because it gives you this outcome. If you want to get that outcome, but you want to use different ingredients, you have to figure out how to hit the certain points to make sure it sticks. Let's see. Must be a good victor. So basically, he's got to be gracious in victory. He needs to be, he can't go, and this is the reason why the main characters do that cheesy thing where they don't kill the enemy who's trying to kill them. They have to show that they're better, basically. They have to be better than the villain. When Jack beats the guy up, he doesn't do anything else other than beat the crap out of him. He doesn't steal, he steals one of the guy's glasses, but it was kind of retribution. You know, you broke one glasses, I needed one pair of glasses back. You know, he beats the guy up. He doesn't kill him. He doesn't try and take his stuff. He doesn't do anything else. Nothing like what the other guy was trying to do to him. And the reason why it matters is because Jack needs to be a good victor. He needs to be good in the face of victory. You know, there's this kind of this honor sequence that always works out. This is something that Naruto always has really well, where he doesn't lord it over his enemies. He seems to try and bring out the good in them and stand up against the evil part of them. And it works out really well. There's a reason why Naruto is very, very popular. One of the original big three when I was reading manga and everything. So, must be a good victor, better. It also, what it does is basically paints the rest of the fight, basically. So where if the main character wins and then goes and kills a bunch of orphans, if you go back and think back on the fight is going to be tainted by what happens. It's almost like, you know, you're sketching something in an outline basically from here, and then when you are you know, in victory, it basically gets colored in. You know, you have this sequence of, oh, this is what it actually means, this is the actual full picture, and you know, sequence for the fight, basically what the weight of the fight, what it meant, what the outcome was also. But also, yeah, if you fight and you want to stop somebody from getting bullied, but then they still get bullied even after the fight's over, then again, that taints this image of victory, more or less. But again, maybe that's what you want, but this is what you need to do with it. So this kind of covers, I think, all the points for it. So what we got here, and this is something that you can see kind of play out. Again, there's some loose rules to it, but basically you can see this play out more or less in a lot of animes and a lot of different stories. You can see this fight out where main character, there's emotional primer. You know, this is something that a great example of this is basically in the Naruto, let's see, versus Pain. Naruto versus Pain, great fight. And what we have here in the middle of the fight, again, you can kind of see this arc, you can have this aspect repeat several times, but Naruto versus Pain, what we've got is Hinata gets beat up by Pain. Activates, you know, rage bonus for Naruto, and activates rage bonus, and it basically answers, why does this fight matter? Pain beat up our girlfriend. Yeah, bam, we gotta go. He starts at a disadvantage. He's weak. He's in the middle of the fight. They're both drawn out. Pain has proven that he's stronger. So what he's going to do, he's, you know, fighting through this. He's trying to progress this until he gets the upper hand against, you know, Pain. And from here, and then he goes and becomes the victor. You know, Naruto is a very gracious victor. He doesn't lord over his enemies. He doesn't make fun of them. It basically makes it so that we can feel good. The audience needs to feel good about victory, because otherwise it will taint the fight. You know, if Naruto basically won the fight and then went over and then punched, let's see, Hinata in the face, and then began beating her up, you know, because he wanted to beat up Hinata and not Pain, and that's what he was really mad about. That would ruin the whole fight, ruins everything for it. So but yeah, I hope you guys learned something, and I think this kind of covers more or less all the points I wanted. So yeah, appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next one.